Right. Although it's kind of funny because the word is potent, right?
I just did that.
You don't say.
No, he talked at all.
This is from the uncontrolling one.
You hear that different ways, but like, I don't know if it's or omnipotence.
Right.
The violence are omnipotent like that.
Right.
Sorry. I think I'm confirmation slightly. Probably struggled and we're saying omnipotence. I wonder if Paul's sitting there.
Yeah, he's sitting where you are right now.
He's gonna sit here because of the wheelchair.
Right.
This Maryland was there.
You sit here.
Oh, that's sort of the homage.
Why don't you pull up on the end?
Yeah, see what he does.
Yeah.
He doesn't tell you there for sure, just had to say that.
Yeah, because here he says moment, well, similar to a moment.
Nice to see you.
Oh.
Hi, Lynn. Hi, Catherine. Hi.
But yeah, it's sort of be training the brain, for sure.
All right, you are going right over here. And I'm going back up to the car to get my book. You want to take your jacket off or leave it on?
Just open it up.
Okay.
Okay.
How are you, Paul?
I'm fine.
Good.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good.
Who's got those strong hands?
Good morning, Professor. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I'm fine.
You can see right there.
Okay, what's the truth these were?
Oh.
You could milk cows if you
Yeah.
had to.
Probably good. You have studied this stuff. This is a book I really think you would
Oh, he went to get coffee. Oh, this is the one you do. Yeah. Okay. Not in English.
It's another way to put it.
Yeah. Okay.
He was obviously champion of
And just bring a lot of more power.
That's about that one.
And the guys pass
Yeah,
it.
Well,
Well, good.
it's
Not my right.
almost 3 weeks. It'll be 3 weeks next Tuesday.
Never.
So it's good now. Fine. Well, it was just a small stool. And I stepped up, but it was like an 8-inch drop. So, but it was just on a straight leg, so it hit hard on the straight leg. So it bruised the bone, I think, but it seems fine. It just hurt a lot, like for 48 hours.
Oh, gee.
And then got less.
See you.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
And then you kind of.
How was the wedding?
Well, did I do something?
Oh, it was
It's
wonderful, right?
It was.
Well, I don't think so. I mean, it never
I had
snowed,
some
and
trouble.
I could.
My
move
Latin,
leg
my
around.
spoken
I just
Latin.
straightened it all.
Spoken Latin?
That last little bit was
Sure.
obviously.
Sure.
It's a
That's where it
concern.
hurt. Was
Oh, conservative.
so I
Catholic?
think now Tim get
Okay, now who's
jammed
this, one of the
into
grandkids?
Yeah.
the knee joint.
Oh, right. Right.
Pardon me, Larry.
Well, that's very
So
interesting.
little things can happen.
What church did you get married in?
Well, you know, it's kind of like when you go to a step because you think there's.
Oh, over in St. Paul?
Library?
Yeah.
You know, when you go that sudden, except I haven't been wet.
And you
so
spoke
get
in
part of the
Latin.
shot. This I just straight.
This must be fairly fast. Yeah, it is.
Shot it.
They can quote Latin with the best.
Resurrecting democracy.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
that is.
area.
Yeah.
All part of it.
Can't see tall, like that far over that.
What's the point?
Where you been? Oh,
They
I
can't.
forgot about the wedding. Did you dance all night?
Yeah.
It was the dead conflict, but we couldn't be here and be at the wedding.
No, he's been much more.
I don't think quite that.
So how good is your Latin?
My Latin is fairly good.
Yeah. Good thing.
I had 4 years of Latin. Mine
Were you the translator then? For
For the priest?
is, well, I was tutoring in Latin.
It was a big weekend.
Let's go.
Was the whole service in Latin?
Already.
That's good.
Most of our words.
About individual.
Where,
And he is about community.
where's the church?
Church is at the intersection of Summit and Lexington.
Oh, that's, yeah, okay, yeah, we talked about that, that's St. Thomas more. I didn't realize they were that conservative. Is there, they've been highly involved with Isaiah, which.
Yeah, it wasn't all in Latin.
Pardon?
I said it wasn't all in Latin.
No, but I
They
mean,
did
just
use some of
generally, that would, well, they probably have, they're probably bipolar. In fact, I think they did have some, there was some stress on it, that used to be St. Luke. There was some stress on it, renaming it.
Oh,
This jacket.
From
your library, I'm
returning.
The
little
borrow
bit,
this
no,
book
but-
from your
They did.
library.
Well, that's why the library is there.
So there, put it with your file.
Did you enjoy the book?
What did the same-
Yeah, I did, I like that.
Some of them
Yes.
lose it, or
I don't know.
Do you know Kurt?
it happens so often.
Yeah, I hadn't read him before, but
Uh,
I know you quoted him in your email.
I would guess they might.
Well, that reminds me, I gotta return the book, so.
the book. God and nature.
Everything's flat.
They're pretty dramatic.
I had it.
They lived with St. Luke's for,
His,
Right.
his other title is what, God and Nature?
honestly, I hope the St. Thomas Mover was.
God and nature.
Congregation.
Yeah.
Well.
we have enough.
Way too many.
A basket.
I'm competing here with, oh.
You're right.
I mean, some.
So when do you hand yours out and say?
Yeah.
Which is 5 minutes from our house. So
Yeah.
occasionally, we were down at Bethlehem.
That's
South Minneapolis at the time, because I
Yeah,
was on staff.
Somebody
there for
wants
7
it, I
years.
have another one at home. I didn't realize until I looked today.
Yeah, it's a
But I already have it.
wonderful. But on occasion, we were.
There's no-
Hey, That's not
Time. Well, 5
It's kind of hard to tell who's or who's here, but.
Yeah.
Larry, that.
Yeah.
Online.
Oh,
And as it turns out.
you know, when I worked on all winter, my
House near
mentor
us
search.
this past week.
And I said, you
Filled
filled
the whole front
Yeah,
yard.
you know, it said very little color in it. I love golden Troy.
the younger,
Listen to
youngest.
9:50, AM 9:50.
All of
A lot of
us.
things change in that house. I think someone here really.
Small world.
Well, it is.
So you left the color out.
I left the color out, no more color.
Good for, good.
So like, we're on here, even though we still living. You know, I was on the
I'm just like that, you know, I'm open for.
just retired last year, but,
Yes.
so we're still here.
I've
And now we're
got
moving.
directories for myself and my.
No,
Big,
books are
that's
no further away,
MUD was
so
the word I was using.
and to
It's
drive off.
intensity versus vagueness. Vagueness.
Well, tomorrow I'm gonna do right
Yeah.
about it.
Just I will take.
Want a cookie with it?
Yeah,
Which kind?
well.
Yeah, it's starting to creep in, so like I'm working on it.
Here, what's
So
your
now I'm
chocolate?
over the
Sure.
over the problem.
Well, that's good.
Lots of
You know, I think the coffee will be sufficient.
Jeremy was working very hard.
They could, yeah, well, we probably. I mean, I should have kids them because we have a strong.
Started.
It really-
Not everyone responds.
Yeah, this.
Where they go.
Which they found that. Respond,
My
Brad.
wife and I.
Told me he was.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, big on
Well, he
something.
was, he said he might not be.
It's
To
Um,
get it decided and then, and.
Oh, I got. Well, I guess I got close to. Oh, yours?
Yeah.
Everything you said to me.
Let's start, you didn't get a cookie yet.
Would have been.
I'll get one later if I want one. I'm still really. So, well, one glass there, but I've been trying to up my protein and finding that it makes me fuller.
Yeah, well, that's-
I'm on the, radio.
There are.
Yeah. Which,
Say, all right.
I don't know, short, you know, that's why I know. But so far, we got a little bit along the picture here now is, the country, I
I went to
guess.
live there.
Digital, sure. Right now, they're most.
Sure.
Oh, well, absolutely, about that.
Yeah.
Now they know what's involved, but, you know, when you just talk about transitioning.
I started when I was still called.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe we can,
30 or 40. I was just like, over here would be the end of the world. Trying to,
oh, it's the.
so we, let's hope we're able to pull that off on the 10th.
Right.
If anybody notices the camera wandering around, just wave at me and fix it. It's fine for about 20 minutes and then it seems, I think it has to wander.
Discover if there's any real action going on.
20 minutes and then likes to wander. That sounds familiar.
We can relate.
Well, anyway, okay, so we have come to discuss omnipotence. Gotta practice saying that word, omnipotence. Not that you need to say it to anybody else because they won't know what you're talking about. But you can, and then you can explain what it means. You can explain what it means, so, but it's, I don't, for me, we're talking about how it's hard to figure out how to pronounce it. I pronounce it because you're so used to saying omnipotence and you want to put an N in there and there's no N. So, anyway. And then I also, added this, I got to thinking, I had read The Uncontrolling Love of God last year, and so I read parts of it again as I was reading this. And one passage he had, it was 165 and 166. He gives God's expression of love taking many forms, gives examples, and he uses the words agape, philia, and eros to show, you know, how love has many meanings, even more than that, but you know, we have this problem of how do you define love, what do you mean by it, what's God's love, what's our love, and whatnot. So I thought that might be an added thing to look at.
Seems to me like it's a lie.
Like it's a what?
It's a lie.
A lie.
What's a lie?
What's happening in the world?
Oh,
Oh, well.
It's a lie when it says everything is good. Is he taking care of us?
I think that's a
We got
question.
right into it. Don't hold back.
Well, the Second World War would qualify as not so good. And the slaughter of the Jews. It does introduce, I sent a little paper, I think you all probably got it, about the problem of evil. And I don't think Whitehead thought everything was fine. He did have reforms for British education. They have a very different system. You pick your school and you prepare for that exam and so. But I hope there'll be a chance to talk about this. By the way, I've got my hat on. Terry Fredheim and I taught the God course for 20 years. And I've received very few actual physical gifts from students, but they had hats made. This is not Mr. X, this is Mr. Whitehead. And,
That's the actual entity there, yeah.
Not Malcolm,
Really.
I don't know how Carol is gonna maneuver us, but I think a major voice like Whitehead's needs to come to terms with the problem of evil. And you talk about that. Whitehead died in 1947, I believe. And didn't know more in 45. So he's, I don't remember the publication date for Adventures of Ideas. Adventures of Ideas is a study by Whitehead of the idea of freedom. The idea of freedom, it has adventures, it moves around, it connects the world. So he's saying, I have to deal with the problem of evil. And he's got perpetual perishing. We'll talk about that. I should say less now.
Well,
He,
does.
by the way, the date on this, he, on his forward is 1932.
Okay, before.
So this is before the worst of the Holocaust.
But didn't he lose his only son
That was
in
World War One.
One? And my sense, I mean, that helped me understand a lot of things that I didn't get before, like Religion of the Making. I mean, all the kind, a lot of things that he wrote. He was having to deal with the fact that he was on a mission flying a plane and it went down somewhere. I don't know that they ever found him.
No.
So I mean, he was MIA, all of Whitehead's life, and that hit him really, really hard, I think. And so he's constantly, that's why the omnipotence is gone. If for no other reason. There was no way he could reconcile that's what God wanted to have happen to his son. He just said no. So I mean, it does drive a lot of what he does. Yeah, not as much as Paul would like it to, but I mean, I think it helps to know that about him. Yeah,
Back to what Marilyn said, which is a big thing. I felt reading the word chapter that I liked it, but I felt this other times, but there's a God is powerful, but God is not all that powerful, or it seems like God given everything. Why isn't God more powerful? Because I agree, we're not seeing it
Well, I guess
a lot.
we're speaking from what's happened to our daughter's house up in
Two Harbors.
Two Harbors. We don't know if it's been burned down or what, and so that's why I'm a little upset with God.
Yeah.
So that's happening right now, is that right? I hadn't heard about that.
Can't get it into the area, find out what's going on, and
Is it
so
right in town or up the highway?
the highway up 61 is closed off.
Wow.
And so that, I guess I wanted to share that just because I'm a little upset with God.
Are they safe? Your daughter and they're safe, the families.
As far as we know,
Yeah.
but we don't know what's gone with the
Yeah.
property and things like that.
Mhm.
So I shared that just because I want you to know what's in me that's I'm
So
sharing.
that falls into there were three categories, right, of evil, natural, moral, and what was the mental or, I don't think that's right.
Metaphysical.
Metaphysical, yeah.
Good
So
for
that's
you.
would you think of that as a natural evil then? I mean, fire happens, right?
Well,
Unless it's
I
arson.
can imagine it would be natural. I mean, I don't, I suppose it is.
So,
Well, it's very pertinent, and, this is probably our last session here today. And, my paper, I think you got that maybe on Monday. That is critical of Whitehead as insufficient. Uh, I- You know, you've probably read what I wrote to talk about evil, moral evil, intentional moral evil, will to do harm, to talk about that as providing a contrast. I can't manage that. I'm not a veteran, but I can't imagine what a veteran would reverberate about that kind of language. And he talks about God prehends every particular actuality. God takes it all in. Well, then God is taking in evil. Is it going to provide a contrast? Another way to organize the problem of evil is to say, how did we get in this mess? And then how do we get out of it? I think there are insufficiencies in the how did we get into it. Yes, I've got page 386 of Process and Reality. I have the book here. He says he calls it self-elevating, self-serving. Evil is when the particular turns against the will of God, the initial aim that God is, the harmony that God is trying to create. There has to be contrast. Larry is here, and we could talk about how the arts need contrast, need difference, but it seems to me to be minimizing the reality of moral evil. 6 million Jews, 8 million Jews. And I have a theory that I brought along a couple of books here that support my theory that contrast is very important in the definition of beauty. So the aesthetic kind of takes over moral evil. I think we need moral categories to evaluate evil. We can't simply say there's good contrast there.
I do admire you a lot. I hope you know that. And so I don't mean to disappoint you with what I say, but just had to say it. So I've always liked you a lot and appreciated you. I wonder.
Thank you. I think it's not too bad to end up our formal sessions with this recognition that nobody has it all. Whitehead doesn't have it all. I would much prefer a Whitehead who had a candid engagement with moral. I'm glad he's written what he wrote, what he did, and I think we can learn the metaphysical and natural evil. You probably have to deal with perpetual perishing. that the immediacy of the experience fades right away. You think about people in your own life, you think about experiences in your own life, and the intensity weakens. You lose something. And he has some kind of funny things. He said he likes to quote the Psalm, the Lord gives his beloved sleep. Sleep seems to be an important ingredient in dealing with natural and metaphysical evil. Well, God gives his beloved sleep. Well, if you had sleep troubles, it would be a great gift. My goodness, to have a good night's sleep. But I think when you say you deal with moral evil by giving people sleep, they're too sleepy right now. We need a moral challenge. So he doesn't have it all. In my work for 50 years, I have tried to blend Whitehead's cosmology and Kierkegaard's anthropology. Kierkegaard has a vigorous self and really capable of evil. He's weak on cosmology. Kierkegaard is weak on cosmology. He thinks the cosmological approach is taking the edge off. Well, maybe Whitehead would be a little, I don't know if Kierkegaard ever read Whitehead.
Other way around.
No,
Whitehead would have read Kierkegaard, but Kierkegaard died 20 years before Whitehead was born.
You think Ord read what Kierkegaard?
Yes.
When I was reading that article, the one that Carol sent, I got intimations of Kierkegaard in Ord's discussion of the two not natures, but elements, the material and the mental, monism. He taught monism. He wrote about, and I started thinking about Kierkegaard's description of the self. He was talking about the human self, but I wondered if Ord was talking about God. He was talking about God's self, but he sort of kind of flipped it. And, I was imagining, the relation of the two, synthesis of the material and the mental, and then Kierkegaard's description of how they relate to each other, but the relation relates to itself, and then you end up with a positive third in a human being. But is it flipping that over and saying the same thing about God in reverse, that God has the positive third that reaches out to us, to creation, to everything? Am I over thinking this?
well, I think in the sickness unto death,
Yes.
despair is the sickness unto death. Kierkegaard, in the first 5 pages, lays out this anthropology where the self is a body and mind, but there's a thirdness. The thirdness is the self relates itself to itself. So there's not only I lack sufficient contrast. That's just not going to be enough. I brought a couple books along. He's got such I do discuss this in Loves of Alien Power. I think you have that book. And Joe Bracken, who Roman Catholic scholar, has written the one in the many, not the one and the many, but the one. Where's the unity in the manyness? And he tries to develop this idea of, a human self is a society of societies. When you get two actual occasions coming together, you've got a society, and then you've got societies merging with other societies. You've got a society, you've got, and ultimately, God's aim is the perfect harmony of all those becomings. I don't, we have many sources. The best book on this is by Kurt Thompson. In the book God and Nature, the discussion is around page 200. I won't read it now, but he talks about a pan-trans. We are in God, and there is the capacity for action. The self is not obliterated. The human self is not obliterated. There's a relationship relating itself to itself. The feminist authors have made the point that Kierkegaard is weak on the idea of underdevelopment of a self. Well, you can go wrong by underdevelopment, or you can go wrong in the other direction where you elevate yourself. And I think Whitehead has that. For him, moral evil is when the self seeks only its own good, not the well-being of the other. I don't think it's bad that at the end of our formal sessions, we take note of where this fine philosopher may have not taken adequate account.
Well, I want to respond to your question, Marilyn, and yeah, I don't know of anyone who says everything is good right now. I mean, you can look at any time in history how everything's bad. Is there ever a decade in the entire history of human race that's been completely calm around the world? I don't think so. There's always something, and a lot of times it's humanity that's done something, but sometimes it's nature or whatever. This is a book I listened to Ord's lecture that was on the Bacon Process event last week, and someone brought up this book that he had written, God Can't, How to Believe in God and Love After Tragedy, Abuse, and Other Evils. And so he kind of addresses that, how it's so hard for people who have, which is all of us really, who have gone through some terrible things in our lives, or know people who've been through some terrible things, and where they have, asked the question, well, why didn't God stop this? Why couldn't God stop this? What happened? And how do they get over that? And so he addresses that question over and over, and it's very readable. It's a very good book. But he said that a lot of people who responded to him are saying this is the first time that they could understand and let go of their anger, to realize that God couldn't have stopped it. God tried, but God often fails because someone doesn't listen to him. Whoever raped this person didn't listen to God when God said, this is not a good idea. This is not a good thing. I mean, God can't fix everything. God's not a fixer.
God is with us.
But God is with us, right, exactly, and that's his main point. But this is a really, really good book, I thought. You can get it on Abe Books for
That,
$6
yeah,
or something.
that book is one of 3 that lead up to this book. It's almost like
Yeah.
the first 3
Yeah.
chapters of this book are these 3 books,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Defining love, a philosophical, scientific, and theological engagement. The uncontrolling love of God,
yeah,
and God
Yeah.
can.
Same one.
Yeah.
So he's really done his research, and he had time to do his research because of what we might call a moral evil event. So Ort was born in 1965 in Washington State. He grew up as a Nazarene. Do you know about the Nazarene?
A little bit.
Tradition? Graduated from Northwest Nazarene College, went to the Nazarene Theological Seminary and Claremont Graduate University. His advisor was David Griffin.
Hello, Tom.
okay.
He taught as an adjunct at Eastern Nazarene College and then was tenured. He taught at Northwest Nazarene College. He taught from 2002 to 2018. In 2014, when he had been there 12 years, he was asked to resign, and the president told him it was because of declining enrollment. The other faculty told him, faculty that had been on the discussion, that his rejection of the traditional doctrine of creation ex nihilo and his support of GLBTQI, etc. students was the reason for the request to resign. If you know about the Nazarenes, you know they're an evangelical. They range from very, very fundamentalist to sort of not so different from other Wesleyans or Methodists. They're part of this holiness tradition that includes the Methodists and charismatic movement and so on. But clearly he was not fundamentalist enough for this particular university. He negotiated a contract and for a lower pay and a termination in 2018, spring of 2008. So for a couple of years and part of the COVID, he really he was given a job at the Center for Process, but he really had a lot of time where he had to scramble a little for what it takes to live, and also some time for writing and photography, which is his other great passion, right?
What was the first part of his rejection of their?
Creation ex nihilo, creatio ex nihilo, the doctrine that says God creates out of absolutely nothing.
Oh,
So here we've got a process theologian who pays for his courage. He's going around the world giving lectures and picking up $100 check, or I don't know what various places pay. Didn't have a salary. This guy knows his stuff.
Yeah. The story isn't over though. In July 2024, he underwent a trial in the Church of the Nazarene, was defrocked and removed from membership because of his advocacy for LGBTQI. He calls it his excommunication, but he still goes to church in the Nazarene church.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
He's there to change them.
I, uh, I reviewed this, unpronounceable,
Omnipotence.
when it came out, and I read it carefully then because I was really, anyway, he knows his theology. He can develop it. He knows the great masters. He knows Barth. He knows Wesley. He knows Martin Luther. This is a capable man. He must survive on 4 or 5 hours of sleep. He's lecturing this month 3 times in Great Britain. He's lecturing in this country, picking up his $100 check, putting his life together. And he runs, have you heard about the Northwind Seminary?
No.
Well, he's very prominent as a faculty member of Northwind.
He actually put it together. He started it, he runs it. It's a tiny online seminary. It involves it has a couple of administrative employees and some part-time faculty that he works regularly with, but he also invites faculty from other institutions to be part of students. We're talking.
Well, Kirsten was a speaker at the beer camp.
Yeah, well,
And
at
the next beer
the
camp
pre-beer camp.
October in Kansas City. He's I can't imagine he gets much sleep because he's lecturing everywhere.
He's got like 4 to 6 students at a time, so it's not a big seminary. As Paul said, they don't have a library.
You get a card that Harvard accepts, Yale accepts. And so but you're not gonna stand in the stacks looking at the book. I like to stand in the stacks, Fiji. You can't do that in Northwood.
I worked with him in the American Academy of Religion because he and I put together the process section for that. This is a meeting of everybody that teaches religion all over, more than the United States. It absolutely includes Canada, and frequently there are people from Africa and so on, South America who are invited. And what amazed me, I mean, I'm surprised no theology was brought up in terms of, where he was standing. He's the one who started open and relational theology, which is first coming out of his own, I'm sure, thinking and what he learned at Claremont. And once he said, I think, probably something akin to, God doesn't know what's going to happen. That would have been enough. Because these are folks who see God as omnipotent, controlling, knowing everything that's going to happen to everybody out into, ad nauseum.
And making absolute demands for holiness.
Well, absolutely demands for holiness, yes. So, I mean, there are a lot of rules. And you're either in or you're out. There's no middle ground there, which is what, of course, he discovered. Not surprisingly, I don't think. But anyway, he's great to work with, and he's,
He is developing, and he's put out the first volume, and you can get it called A Systematic Theology of Love.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be a 3-volume set. And the first one is out there. It's close to $40, but you can get it for $9.99 on Kindle. So that's what I'm gonna do. But he was on this Zoom lecture, he was kind of outlining or saying what would be in the first one. And a lot of it is what we're familiar with already. But it's systematic. So he's also addressing, which he does a little bit in this, the great scholars in Christian history, Augustine and everybody, and but also more modern ones like Barth or Tillich or whatever, and some of the ones that stand against him, you know, from his background and some of those evangelicals that are very outspoken. So he kind of has these conversations, he said, with them. I don't know if it's like that or really like conversations. I'm very interested in getting his book though, because he said he looked and looked and looked and he said when he Googled systematic theology, there's nothing really out there with a process viewpoint at all, or
Well, that's not
relational. Well, I mean, in the, well, he said like in the top 10, he said there's nothing out there, yeah.
I think his search engine was a little narrow.
There's a lot out there.
Yeah, a lot out there, but he said he was criticizing that they weren't systematic enough is what he was
Yeah.
saying, is that, so his point is he's trying to create a truly systematic approach.
Yeah, and he goes after, I mean, he does that in this book. He goes after no less a theologian than Augustine.
Yeah.
Why you bother with him anymore is beyond me.
Well, I think it's fascinating because of how important Augustine still is in a lot of theology, and Augustine's claims about, you know, God can only love what is perfect. So God essentially can only love God.
You remember in the Process and Reality, Whitehead says, philosophy has no free pass. So philosophy has to be ontologically respectable, honest, deal with that. That's why I wanted to test this against the problem of evil. If you can't, you know, the book that probably has sold the most is entitled God Can't. God, is there anything God can't do? Yes, there is. And so there are a number of things. You're working within the process cosmology, but you're bringing the Nazarene holiness tradition to bear. I like this stuff. I think it's well done. I like the fact that, you know, when it says God intends, that's like we intend. It's not a new word that we have to know Latin to be able to understand. When we say God promises, that's like we make promises. God acts, we act. So theology cannot cut itself a free pass. It has to go through analysis.
Or challenges this idea of creation ex nihilo, which is what got him in trouble with Northwest Nazarene University, theoretically. And also the idea that God chooses or is free with regard to love, right?
What do you mean free with?
Well, where it says God loves necessarily, right?
It's part of his nature.
Right.
God cannot be God without loving. Okay. The same is true when talking about creation and creativity. God must create. God is so involved in the ongoing process, we'll say, of creation, that God cannot not create. Right? So that challenges this idea of the freedom of God in relation to us. God loves us. God cannot not love us.
Does he write anything about how God manifests love in the world? How is God's love manifested in the world?
He does.
Yeah,
part of what this was that I handed out now, obviously.
Well, isn't it in here with about 9 different points?
Mhm. Yep. But it's pretty much anything good. That's God manifest. That's what I took away.
Yeah, but also he makes the point that God can't do anything totally alone by God's self. It always has to be in relation with, world, with creatures, with humans, whatever, with rocks, with whatever, that God is always in partnership with creation, in the creative process. He was saying that, and he was also made the point that, God, all loving and the ideals we think of beauty and love and perfection and all that, the overall arcing nature of God. But also God does have freedom, how God manifests love or expresses love moment to moment.
Right.
So that's where the freedom of God is. But then we have freedom to reject or accept or work with God.
God's, what is called the primordial nature and process,
Right.
is so organized to prioritize love in all kinds of different ways, but each interaction in the world is contextualized. So though that is God loves in whatever ways that moment in the world needs love, right?
Right.
Page 140, I'm sorry, but I'm still thinking about Gary over there at some point. Because, he lists these 8, what does he call them? Claims, I guess.
Right.
But Kristen, finish your thoughts before.
No, I was just gonna say for human beings, it's 137, just before that, he's talking about the work of the Spirit. Believers speak of detecting the divine, for instance, in a still small voice, intuition, a feeling, a fully nudge, an inclination, one's moral compass, a hunch, an inkling, divine insight, an inaudible call, a light, one's better angels, one's conscience, and more. So those are all ways in which human beings experience this. We assume that a rock probably cannot hear, but there are ways in which there are rock ways in which the rock experience, and we maybe can't process that because that's not how we live. But it is there. So that's all I was going to say, Jim.
There are connections. Darsha's moved. Darsha was sorry she couldn't join us today, but her movement, she's got 19 ambassadors that are internationally based. The idea of the nest. So you build a nest for a child. The first 2 years are crucial. And you don't let the child cry itself asleep. You talk to the child. You say, "Oh, you're so beautiful today," or "You're so handsome." "Oh my, what a fine voice you have." And the community, the grandparents, yes, the grandparents count. And other members of the community. I've just been with my great grandchild, James William Smollett, and man, he's 7 months now. They're so curious. They're looking at it, reaching. Can't see very well yet, but man, this kid is going to be good. You can see the curiosity.
If we don't stifle it,
I should have brought some
He's
food,
also darn cute.
Should have brought some food.
but
Definitely.
God, open and relational. Is the future open for God? Yes, it is open for God. God doesn't know what's coming. God knows an awful lot about the present. And if you take a seminar with me, you know I'll talk too much. That doesn't require foreknowledge. It just requires knowledge of the present. And so God knows an awful lot about what's coming through the pipeline, you know. But God doesn't foreknow the future. God is in time, working with time. God is on time.
I wonder, and this is more honestly a speculative question than it is a response to the problem of evil. But I wonder if we're talking about God necessarily creating and necessarily loving. Is it really love if there isn't freedom?
Well, what is so fine about freedom? Maybe the necessity is what has been built up, that churning mass of things, the babies crying in the night. All of that is part of the necessity. So God is on time, rooted in that particularity. God doesn't have to have absolute freedom. No, God doesn't have absolute freedom.
What did you say, Kirsten? Is it loving?
Is it love if God has no freedom about it? If God must necessarily love, then
I would question the love at that point, I think.
I think part of the process model, and this is where I would go to search for an answer, but I haven't resolved this at all. But part of the process model is there is a necessity with that, right? God must love. There is freedom with how, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it isn't entirely only true that God loves necessarily. God loves necessarily, but God is also free in some ways to decide how to love. Right?
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
How does freedom, or don't, maybe it does, freedom and novelty, how do they go together? Is there a similarity at all there, or is that they're two different categories?
It moves between chaos and novelty. So if you have too much order, you have boredom. And it's not beautiful. To be bored is not a beautiful experience. If God gives his beloved sleep, you might go to sleep. I eat breakfast in my.
Triviality is one of the words.
There are people all around the table sleeping. It's maybe they haven't had a good night. I don't know.
So novelty occurs at, as Paul is saying, at the border between chaos and order, right? And part of what the stuff that Paul is challenging on the problem of evil, part of what Whitehead is doing there is suggesting that there are really two ways that evil occurs. One is triviality. One is so much order that we end up with anesthesia, right? Sleep.
Boredom.
Or boredom, same thing. For Whitehead, anyway. The other is so much chaos that nothing can survive.
That leads to discord.
Right? It leads to discord. It leads to so much unpleasantness and so much struggle that it's impossible. So a little of both have to be part of that. I would say that Whitehead would classify, although we don't have his writings on this, the Nazi experience as maximal discord, right? Then in fact, it is so evil that it's intolerable.
It's also so trivial.
Hmm.
In a sense.
How do you mean that?
Well, he's got these things set up and when you have a maximum amount of, I think it was, no, not trivial, intensity, a maximum amount of discord and intensity. That's evil.
This discord and
Intensity.
intention.
Yeah, you got this, think about it, you have intensity on top, you have trivia on the bottom, you have discord over here, and you have,
Order.
no. Well, no, because trivia is what leads to boredom, but, what's the fourth one?
I can't remember what he.
I can't either, but I mean, perfection is up this triangular piece.
Where's harmony in there? Is that the other?
Harmony is.
Harmony and discord, thank you so much, because then, and perfection is where intensity and harmony meet. Okay, so if you're a Church of the Nazarene, that's where you really want to go, but they wouldn't understand that, I don't think. And you have evil when you get intensity and discord, and harmony and trivia is
a kind of evil too.
nothing. It is an.
It's
evil
kind of
in
like,
itself.
that's kind of like Kierkegaard's,
Anesthesia.
you know, underdevelopment.
I want to mention Dr. Ann Peterson of the Augustana College faculty. And she uses music as a metaphor. So she loves jazz, where there is a lot of structure, there's a lot of givenness. There's no boredom in the jazz is not boring. There's new, but it's not unstructured. There's a necessity. A new voice will come in. She herself plays 2-3 instruments, and I don't remember Anne's title, but she
God creation and all that jazz.
yeah, God creation and all that jazz. Yeah. You can apply these categories that Lynn is talking about. You can apply them to our experience. This is empirical theology. It's based on experience.
I do think the problem becomes that everything has to respond to God. It is not, we also are caught in this necessity of that God sends an initial aim, and that starts out each moment of our reigning society's experience, right? But we have freedom as to how, and it's not total freedom because we have all sorts of other environmental factors coming in. But in fact, one of the things that happens is that we don't respond to that ordering that God has of love at the top and all the way down in the way that God's vision tries to lure us into doing.
So then at that point, God would love and he would adjust it.
God loves,
He or
suffers,
she
and
would adjust
adjusts
the love.
for the next
For
moment.
whatever comes next. That's interesting.
Why couldn't God send an initial aim to a society of societies? He says in Process-Relational Theology, we must not create some entity which rules over the whole becoming. We must not do that.
Yep, but he does also talk about a reigning society of the human,
Hierarchically ordered.
hierarchically ordered.
Why can't God address I'm not saying he does deal with it, but why couldn't God address a society of societies? There's so many things. Think about what makes a person so complex. There's so many angles of access, and God is putting together all those particulars, but God is not sending an initial aim for the society of societies. I think Whitehead died too early. We need more work here. And there are younger, I mean,
Well, and I think Marjorie Suhaki has done some work with that in terms of her idea of experiencing the satisfaction of each moment and how that contributes to the overall experience of an entity. The problem is this gets really into the weeds of the of the system. And there's lots of potential there, but Paul is right in that Whitehead kind of created this system that had space in it, right? To figure out how to put it all together. And we've got David Griffin and John Cobb, and we've got Marjorie, and we've got beautiful, beautiful Catherine Keller and Thomas J. Ord, and even Sally McFaig, who Carol was writing about and sent to us.
Whitehead wasn't.
Who won't admit that she read Whitehead, but she did.
Whitehead was not a theologian, right?
And Paul Sponheim.
mathematician,
Hmm?
math.
He was a mathematician and philosopher.
So maybe he can be forgiven for not
Getting
all the guys.
doing systematic theology.
Well,
We
part of his
owe
attitude is
him,
for
I don't mean to, but my little thing on the problem of evil, I think his thinking is inadequate. It's not way off. Perpetual perishing is a very useful idea with natural and metaphysical. It's moral evil where his notion of contrast is just insufficient.
No, but he was a cosmologist. So I don't think he was attempting to cover everything in the whole wide world.
That's what
And there's a great deal of psychology that was simply not available to him yet. It was a very new field. I struggle with the question of, Ward talks about in this book, all of those ways in which we experience the nudge from God, right? I struggle with the question of why it is that it is when I'm acting on what I think is a terrifically moral impulse that I do the most damage.
When you think, say that again.
I think I'm acting on a terrifically moral impulse and I do the most damage.
You have an example of that?
As a prophet. Because he puts prophet in that same base with intensity and discord. That's where the prophet has to operate. And it's not a particularly wonderful or comfortable place to be.
Yeah, what do you mean?
So when I am being very loving toward my relative who is a racist, who is being very vocal about how bad those people are, and I am not speaking up because I know this person has this history of pain, right? And I'm going, oh, well, I don't need to talk about this in this particular situation.
So it's a sin of omission, you think, on your part.
Yes.
You're not speaking up when.
Or in my congregation, recent event, when a very difficult decision has to be made, one I can't describe in much detail, that entails a set of bad choices, And I'm listening to the pastors talk about the decision that is in the process of being made and a couple of other people who are involved in it. And I go, this is terrible, but we are doing this.
And you're saying.
But I talk about it later after it's happened
Oh. Hmm.
instead of saying it
Oh.
at the moment. Right? Because I want to support my pastor.
Mhm.
Because I love the people I'm working with.
Is it sufficient to make you leave?
Well, nothing is sufficient. Well, there have been some really horrible things that have happened, so over the years.
Ord is turning out young graduate, people with a doctor's degree. They are recognized with the ATS, the Association of Theological Seminaries. They've got people, some of them are going into the parish ministry, some of them are landing temporary positions in college and seminaries. But he's got his own little group, and it's not so small. When Kirsten was speaking that Sunday morning at the bear camp, I was at a table with eight people, and I mean, I know these are young.
Yeah.
They've got 30 years ahead of them yet.
Yeah.
But we're in a gap here. We don't have Ord is 60.
Yes.
You know, he's not a kid.
Spring 6 years.
And we're on 4 hours of sleep. How long is he going to be doing this?
Well, Clinton got by for a long time.
Well, you're 96.
Still is.
Yeah.
Yeah, how much sleep did you use to get?
Still.
I'm up to 6 hours a night now.
I'm still thinking about what Christian, the example you used. I met for breakfast yesterday with one of my very best friends who was watching his wife of many years, whom he loves dearly, slip away from him because of Alzheimer's.
Mhm.
She's still living at home with him. He could just see the progression. Progression meaning decline. And so yesterday he posed a question to me. He said, you know, when she gets really bad, he said, I sometimes think the best thing that could happen for her is a massive heart attack. And then he paused and he said, and probably the best thing that could happen for me too. And then he said, I feel guilty. So I didn't really know how to respond to him, except to talk about God's presence. And, you know, we all have these feelings.
Those could be a topic for next year, but that's where assisted dying comes in.
Yeah.
But not for today, but.
Yeah, yes, please. 'cause
Would
I'm
he
in the
talk
same
to
boat.
you about it in
Well,
Canada?
he talked about the Canadian, I wonder what MAIB or something, or MAID, MAID? They have an assistant. Assisted suicide.
But retained Paul's concerned about Nazis and the Holocaust. I think a fair number of the Nazis, for whatever reason, believed they were doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And that God was leading them.
Yeah.
So what do we do about that?
Well, white nationalists who.
I was going
Oh,
to
yeah,
say.
this is happening now.
Yeah.
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 Well, there's certainly a mandate there for our education ministry. But we ought to have a group like this. This feeds people. I'm sure that can be a criticism, but that's why we try to inject critical questions to, can Whitehead handle this? He is not God, really.
Not really.
I also think there's more vagueness than the three forms of evil talked about: moral evil, natural evil, and metaphysical evil allow in terms of evil. What's happening with your daughter's house? It's clearly natural evil. Lightning strikes, causes fires. It's been exceptionally dry up there this year, all of that. But so natural evil, sure, but why are we having more?
And she is an ordained pastor.
Yeah.
Oh, that doesn't cut.
Why are we having more and more catastrophic storms? Why in Minnesota in May are we having storms in which the rain does not hit the ground?
Yeah.
You just see the huge calling for a vigorous education ministry. What are we teaching?
Climate change is not simply natural evil. Natural evil's involved, but moral evil is a huge factor,
Yep.
Maybe some of you want to go to Kansas City in October. Ord's gonna be there with his flanks of troops.
Maybe for $100 we could get him here.
And Jim went out to Claremont for the international conference. How many people were there?
Several hundred, I think it was.
Yeah.
At least, yeah.
They're going back to rooms like this,
We might talk about whether we could put together a package among several congregations to bring or to talk. That's something we could talk about doing. I don't know what it would take. He liked St. Paul when he came in the fall. So
And when he was here, he actually preached just down the street here in Roseville. Fred heard him. Fred came up to me like the next week, says, "I heard this fantastic preacher," and he started talking about it. And I figured out he was talking about Thomas J. Ord.
Where was that?
During the beer conference that Sunday.
yeah, so Fuller every year, in coordination with a lot of other people, puts together what's called beer camp, theology beer camp. And he invites all of the really exciting, I want to say younger, but they're not all young, theologians. And they do several sessions. It's a weekend. It starts on Friday. It goes through Sunday. They do sessions. And people sign up, and then along with it, you can purchase flights of beer to drink.
Make the theology go down.
Because Fuller maybe still is a beer brewer, and is big on using beer as evangelism. Thomas J. Ord put together this last fall, and I assume he's going to do it again. A pre-beer camp event on open and relational theology. And so some of the people who were there were like him, were also in the regular program, but he brought a lot of younger, less well-known people into that. I was asked to do a response. I was among the oldest people there, let's just put it that way. And they do a thing where, these are a lot of them are still students of his who are doing their projects, right? So you get to see their projects and stuff. They do a different city every year, but it was St. Paul in October, and he mentioned that he really liked it here, so.
Well, you told us about it. I looked online and unfortunately you have to pay for the entire weekend. You can't pay for a day. So it was really expensive and I thought, I don't have the energy to, because it's looked pretty high energy. But I don't have the energy for a whole weekend there and I thought, well.
That's a lot of beer, Tim. It's like going to a,
Yeah.
used to call it smorgasbord, now
I'm
it's a buffet.
kind of ambivalent about the beer, but.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, well, I wasn't thinking of the beer part, but just for low or nothing. I mean, they had.
Yeah,
more people.
Oh, it's another, look at it, though, there must be all kinds of stuff now on YouTube and so forth of
There-
people like him and.
Yeah,
you know,
like
we
him,
could-
but not
we could
from him.
use, that kind of thing to start off our session,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Different,
That'd be great.
I think
different
Martin Luther
subject.
King Jr. and the race for justice. I don't think order is going to be assassinated, but he was defrocked. You know, his plea was essentially, you charge me with affirming the GLBTQ agenda for ordination. I plead guilty as charged. Yes, I support that. They should be able to be pastored. The Lutheran Church finally got there. And you got all sorts of resistance still. How many senior pastors are women? How many senior pastors are GLBTQ? Not many. So,
You know, House of Hope does that, they have a Friday night, Saturday thing, I wonder, would he be too radical or whatever for them?
I don't know House of Hope as well as you do, so I don't have an answer to that question, but.
I couldn't.
Maybe a non-ecumenical. Yesterday I was at a little workshop and this woman is a professor at McAllister. And she said at commencement today, Dr. Fauci is speaking.
Really?
Yeah, she talked about all the security,
Yeah.
everybody. She was at something where Obama spoke before he was president. Yeah, she
Yeah,
was name dropping all over the place.
Hamilton University might, because
That's
they're part of the Wesleyan movement,
Yeah.
right? They might be interested in bringing him in. It's worth a conversation. He might be too conservative for them, but we could see.
Well,
Who's this?
Or
I think-
Colin Ord,
I know, but the institution.
Hamlin,
Oh, Hamlin. Oh,
I wouldn't
heavens,
think-
yes.
Augsburg. I don't think Augsburg would do it, but
They wouldn't.
I think they might.
Be too conservative.
no, their
Oh, that's too bad.
their slots for doing that are not.
I met Jimmy Carter at Augsburg.
Oh,
decades
yeah,
ago.
that was the Peace Prize for him.
So
I'm a
amazing.
graduate of Augsburg, so be careful what you say.
Maybe the Bostic lecturer
Don't know.
might work.
Anyway, somebody do.
But there others are like interreligious and Lutheran theology
UTS.
and
UTS, United Theological
yeah,
Seminary.
they might.
I
Well, he
want to
doesn't
bring up
Augsburg
Catherine
doesn't have to.
Keller. We had one meeting on Catherine Keller, and the question I have is, do you have concerns or items you want to talk about in the final 3/4 of Keller? She's the best we've got. There aren't any process theologians better than this. She attacks every issue. Man, she's ahead of the game. And this book was written for seminary students at Drew University. So it's for people like us. We're seminary students, in fact. I like the vivacity of her writing. She's on top of things. On major issues. For example, the creation out of nothing, the word first point. She really talks about how God creates out of possibility. I think of Lynn's presentation, that first session where the future was possibility. genuine
This is
positive.
another one of
I
Catherine's
appreciated what we
books.
read of her
Catherine Keller.
in this group and then talked about it.
And quotes and acknowledge, in the acknowledgements, there's Catherine Keller. It looks like she's read this book in draft.
That's why I go.
It's the one that we had back.
To the library.
Yeah, that's the one where we had
That's who he's talking.
just done a
Ord
chapter.
is much more a typical systematic theologian with a lot of categories. Ord is
Do you want?
not studied.
I will say people either love Keller or hate her because of her sort of spiral logic.
That drives me nuts.
There's pencils there.
I love her, but she's distinctively different from Ward, who, lays it all out linearly.
Oh, I like the topic sentence for the paragraph to be in the top line. Much easier to follow.
I like to pick up puns here and there, and she's great at that.
Carol is the chair, not just of this group, but of the adult ed committee.
Yeah, for whatever that means.
You are the chair.
I am the chair, which means I'm the secretary and I pull things.
I think it's very, very helpful when we've got a connection with the structure. And there she sits, Miss Connection.
Behold.
So as I understand it, this is our final
Yeah,
session for
this
this
we
year.
Year.
Talk about this. This is the final one for this school year. And, it seems like we're finally getting more into feeling as a group, that we discuss more freely now than, when we first started and didn't know each other.
Putting together a package and getting Ord right here.
Love it.
No,
I
we'll
think
see.
that'd be wonderful.
That would be one thing we
Yeah.
could work on.
We could work on that, yeah,
That would be
and,
exciting.
but also, I'm hoping that, we're willing to meet again next year. And I'll put something out to say, and if you have ideas of specific books or maybe articles or something on YouTube, that we could, watch and think about, that would also be a possibility. We'll put something together. If Lynn and Kirsten and Paul and I and Gary maybe get together in this summer and talk about some possibilities, we can see. The only thing, a second Saturday seems to work more or less, I think, for people, and we'll adjust that as if we have to. I know now that for Prince of Peace, the second week of October is family camp.
Oh, yeah.
Out at.
Everybody's
Green Lake.
invited.
What does that mean?
Well, it's a family camp. They're trying to get as many people as possible. They're starting to advertise it now, but,
Mhm.
but,
A weekend away.
a weekend away, we're down in
Spicer.
Green Lake,
Siren?
Spicer.
Oh, Spicer.
I think that's where Scout kind of stuff work is a camp town square.
I never did well at Bible camp when I was a kid.
Anyway, I don't want to compete with that.
Right,
But
right.
so that would be another time, we'd maybe move it to like the third
Yeah.
Saturday, but other
Which
than
is
that.
MEA weekend, but this is name.
Right.
Or we could do it
Right.
the first
Maybe the first.
maybe the first week of October. We can figure that out. We can put together, a tentative calendar and
That's a
and maybe
great
get
idea.
us started and if you have any input.
Yes.
And maybe I'll send out a thing to just request to ask you for your comments that you've been sending me and I'll share them with who's on who comes to meet. How you felt about this year, about our choices, and there's a whole book, is that satisfying or just a chapter occasionally, or should we look at articles or YouTube? If you have other suggestions, we can certainly do that, so. Cause I know buying a book
I
every
ran out of-
time and.
I want to ask you
I
right
couldn't print my
here.
last thing, but I really like when you sent it. to me.
Are you on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
church council?
But we have to watch for
Central?
legality, we can't do too much of that.
Right.
But I'm well enough connection.
Is-
Actually, I am on the education committee, which is very small. But anyway, why are you asking?
Well, I was just wondering, it would be in such a prominent location.
Yeah.
Central Lutheran Church is the heart of, we think back to Elder Hewland and.
Yeah, no, we could certainly look into that.
Larry was just, this is.
Right now is when the program for the next year is being shaped.
Yeah.
There are probably some openings still.
Festival this weekend.
This is, I'm at Prince of Peace.
Larry
Kirsten is at Hope.
had to go, but that's. Yeah, Larry, he's part of the Art of World thing. I've heard about out of that on NPR. I've heard a few little things about it. And anyway, it's his, he's invited us to stop by. It's either today or tomorrow. And that's, his studio is just down on Orpinter, not too far from here, or well, Hennepin, across the line. Hennepin on the left, and that's a thing to.
I don't think they
Sure
put the
about it.
address on it.
I've got the address, cause I looked up, cause I planned
We've
it.
been to the studio, but I
Go
saw
there.
an ad, it's a whole street now this.
Yeah,
weekend.
yeah, it's a whole big,
North end, yeah.
big fair. Yeah, there's a lot of artists.
It's the biggest it's ever been. There's everything from, I have a friend who's selling jam that she makes to this kind of very
There's a map on the back of the card.
important art.
Larry's studio address is 2010
Yeah, here.
East Hennepin. It's
Yeah,
before Stinson.
It's on the back, I missed that.
Yeah.
And
Even though
Building
280 is
eight.
closed right now.
building 8 and second floor 204. I'm sure there's signs out there too, but
They've got their own.
because it looks like there's a lot of buildings there. It used to be something.
A lot of little cubicles, I went once and
Try to get
you
on.
kind of wander. Have fun peeking in.
I want to add nothing definite yet. But I am exploring the possibility of starting a similar group to this at University Lutheran Church of Hull. And I will let you know, especially when I have more information. So we'll see.
You know, in the category of announcements, there's the Violins of Hope. Have anybody heard about that? This is the Jewish community brought in violins that survived the Holocaust. It's an amazing thing. It was the program for the Westminster Forum the other day. So they've actually got about 70. I don't know if they brought them all. It's based in Tel Aviv, but they're here through June now at the Jewish community centers, the one in St. Paul and the one in Minneapolis. So they're very moving to see these violins that actually were played in concentration camps, and it's really amazing. And SPCO actually, and now that I think of it, SPCO yet today and tomorrow their performances are tied to these violins, and the musicians actually play these violins a little bit. So anyway, yeah.
Wow. Just a conclusion for the day. There is no perfection. The future is open. We will never fully solve the problem of evil.
The issues that have been discussed in this structure about power, the place of freedom, order and chaos. We know enough to put together a program.
I have one last thing too. I was gonna share from God Can't. And maybe it kind of ties in with what Marilyn was saying when you feel like, where's God? I don't know if I can find it. But when he talks about how, God feels everything we feel, God experiences everything we feel, even deeper than we can ourselves on a conscious level. Which to me is such a
a really awesome thing to think about. But he also adds this, what I thought was very interesting. He says, on page 53 of this book, God's heart breaks by what breaks us. But this heartbrokenness does not lead God to despair. The God of perfect empathy never gets depressed to the point of immobility. The God of all consolation never suffers empathy fatigue. God's sensitivity and emotion never leads to evil because God's nature is love. God responds to all that is negative, frustrating, and painful with resilient hope. Pain, suffering, and agony never alter God's everlasting love. God feels our pain and can handle it. So I really liked that. Beautiful.
I have an extra copy of this book if anybody is interested.
From
So-
books, free, I mean, free shipping for about $6-7.
Yours.
And I ordered
You wanna
one.
hand it down to him?
I ordered one for the library too. That'll come.
All right, thank you, Carol.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank
Thanks,
you very
Carol.
much.
Bring all the ideas and discussion too, so thank you.
I have a specific thing I want to talk about.
Tables need to go down as usual.
Yeah, you need to go down, leave the chairs out, just kind of push them aside, you don't stack. I found